among us here, they run races, sometimes for fun, sometimes not at all. But I think it's fair to say that most of us have realized that the Christian walk, Christian journey is not just a quick sprint, but it's a lifelong perseverance to be reunited with God. Maybe it's familiarity or control that we're looking for. Backwards to, not forwards to. The motives can be fear or regret. Maybe you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, let's go back to where I came from. Maybe you lack trust that God can change the situation you're in and will walk with you through the mountains, through oceans and desert. This can happen and you slip into a regression, into walking backwards where you once were, but it slows or stops the spiritual growth. But God calls us to go forward. Many others are on the spiritual journey, but it's on yourself alone to make the decision which direction you want to go and then move forward step by step, from reverse to drive, from regression to revival. Because Jesus' invitation is today as important as it was 2,000 years ago. Come follow me. Thank you for everyone who came today despite the horrible weather. Now it looks a bit better, but it was a bit of a journey here. Today I'm talking about gears of faith, a spiritual journey, just looking at it from a different angle. So there is a guy in 1983, his name is, we hear the name soon, he's running the ultra marathon in Australia from Sydney to Melbourne. It's a 544 mile race in freedom units or 875 kilometers, and it takes a couple of days to run. It's quite a long run. People actually do this, so this has been going on for a while. And there was one man who turned up for the race and he wanted to register and run. And he comes in like a work overall and has like work boots on, and people are like, what are you doing here? You don't look like a runner. This guy's name is Cliff Young, and he is a 61-year young potato farmer that joins the race. And so the organizers, even at the time, were even worried, like, what is this old guy doing here? We don't want anyone to die during the race. This is bad publicity. And then eventually they got convinced, okay, this guy can actually run, so they allowed him to join the race. So he got some new running shoes from others, but he came in work boots. Anyway, so this guy starts running very slowly, and everyone is already gone, like the pro runners, they're all like gone. And he's like trailing behind. First night, he comes late at night, and then somehow his massage therapist sets the alarm wrong at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he wakes up and starts running. And after a few hours, like, why is it still dark? And so he realizes he has a big head start, like 30 kilometers or something, and then he just continues running. And then he decides to use the lack of sleep to his advantage, so he just keeps running. He doesn't sleep, he doesn't stop for rest or anything. He just continues, slowly, but he continues. And guess what? After 5 days, 14 hours and 4 minutes, this is the guy, by the way. Oh, sorry, come back to this one. This is the guy, by the way. He shuffles along, and after 5 days, 14 hours and 4 minutes at 1:25 a.m., he arrives in Melbourne at the finish line. The next guy behind him is 50 kilometers behind him. And this is like the footage from around the time. I was not alive, so I trust the people who took the video, that this is what happened in Melbourne when he arrived. And he set a new world record for this ultramarathon. So what was his secret then? Like, he had no, he didn't go fast or anything. He just went consistently. He had no special, like the new running shoes, they have like carbon plates and everything, and like engineered to really get seconds and off your time. But he did not have this. In 83, I don't know how advanced the technology was. Energy gels, doping, nah. It was just he did not stop. He was a sleeper, someone unassuming, but he did not sleep. And he took no breaks. So he told the experience with herding animals helped him, because he was apparently sometimes chasing sheep for 2 or 3 days straight in his gum boots because he wanted to outrun the storm. So he had some experience with this ultra long running. And He just kept going. And his running style, the one you have seen before, it's called the Young Shuffle, and it has been adopted by a few other racers later, and at least 3 other people won the ultramarathon with this racing style. Very apparently energy efficient, like to run like this. Yeah, it looked goofy and awkward, but it proved to be really a good strategy. So, oh yeah, by the way, this is the stage how you have to train for this ultramarathon I wanted to mention. This one is, the Westfield run is over here. I'm somewhere here. I don't aspire to go all the way, but this is how you have to train for this race to be there. Yeah. Our topic on the run, gears of faith. I used the illustration from a transmission, so for all of us who drive automatic, just imagine this is the drive gear here, and you go from lowest to highest. As I have said, we have seen some of us among us here, they run races, sometimes for fun, sometimes not at all. But I think it's fair to say that most of us have realized that the Christian walk, Christian journey is not just a quick sprint, but it's a lifelong perseverance to be reunited with God. And every race has different stages, has paces, different speed. Like you can see here, you start with fun runs, and then you continue to half marathon, marathon, and so on. You all like different strategies for everything. You cannot run what is this Westfield run, from Westfield Parramatta to Westfield Doncaster. You cannot run it the same way you do a fun run, for example. You have to use the energy differently. So yeah, all those different journeys and different stages, sometimes they happen all in one lifetime or in 1 year. So I wanted to split these stages into 7 gears, all the way from reverse gear to the 4th gear, or drive. So join me while we shift through these gears and while we look at passages in the Bible that help us understand this journey with God. So I'm starting with the first one, reverse gear, the regression. You go backwards. It's one of the gears that is used the least, like you don't go often backwards. And it has one purpose only, go backwards, not to go fast. And it's the opposite of the direction you want to go. Maybe you have an obstacle in front of you, like, oh no, I need to turn backwards. You need to get away from something. Sometimes you don't want to drive somewhere and you just go back. So in biblical times, obviously there were no cars, they had donkeys, horses, or they walked by foot. So we'll look at some of the stories how people walked backwards or forwards in the coming minutes. And right off the beginning, in the first book in the Bible, there is a story of God's judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah. So the cities were evil, and a metaphor for being evil. Even today, we still have this, okay, Sodom and Gomorrah is just bad. There's nothing good from them. And there was a family, though, that stayed true to God's principle. So God saved them by sending a messenger angel to get them out of here. And it took some time to convince them. So we pick up the story in Genesis 19, 15 to 17. The morning comes, the angels hurry Lot to get out, take his family with him, and say, get out. And while he lingered, the man took hold of his hand and get him out. So it came to pass, in the last verse here, when they had brought them outside, that he said, escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed. So it's like really urgent, like go, get out, just run, be on the run, just go. But they're hesitating. They're lingering. They don't want to go really. They're just like, maybe you can still like spend some time more in the city, despite the urgency and hurry. So it was a life and death issue. It's like a really clear warning you can see here, lest you be consumed by the punishment of the city. So God brought this punishment finally to the city while they got out. But what happened next? While they were on the way escaping, his wife looked back behind him and she became a pillar of salt. Unfortunately, his wife was longing for what she had left behind. Despite all the evil that was going on, she kept her eyes fixed on the very thing they were freed and released from. She disobeyed God's direct instructions, which he said, do not look back. And maybe it showed her lack of faith. Maybe she couldn't imagine a life with less comfort and was afraid of the future. Even Jesus references that in that warning in Luke 17:32, to not turn back when God asks you to move forward. So this has been a warning for many years for those people. So we might say, okay, maybe Lot's wife has not really experienced what God can do. so she had no foundation of trusting him. Okay, fair enough. So let's look at the story of the Israelites escaping from Egypt. We have studied it in the last couple of months, so this is a familiar story to you. But everyone you know, all your family, imagine this, is in slavery for many years. You don't know anything else. You don't know what freedom is like. But then in the last few months, there has been like a really great change, a supernatural power that you slowly realize is the God that your grandparents know, frees you from the ones who enslave you. First time in your life, you taste freedom. You're like, oh, this is what it feels like. I'm free. I'm free now. You can walk for a few days away from your past. You just walk, you walk away. The previous masters are not happy about it. They realize, hey, our free labor just left. So it's gone overnight. So they hunt them down. And suddenly you find yourselves, as an Israeli, in a difficult situation. There are mountains beside them. There's the sea in front of them. And there's the army behind of them. So with all those fresh experiences, what do? What's the next move? We read in Exodus 14, when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, behold, the Egyptians marched after them, so well-organized army. They were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, and it starts, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt so with us, to bring us out of Egypt? Is this not the word we told you, let us alone? For it would have been better for us to serve them than to die in the wilderness. Fear. Just fear takes really control of them. Like they can't think of anything else. They just see the enemy and fear. They want to return back to the familiar environment, rather the familiar horrors than the unknown blessings. And this desperation and this lack of faith just takes over. If they could go back, they would, but they're blocking them. So that's the first but not the only occasion where they were longing to go back to Egypt. And so the past experience did not guarantee that they would not want to go back. And it happened also to seasoned missionaries like Demas, who was a colleague of Paul at the time. He traveled and worked with the Apostle Paul to spread the gospel, and unfortunately he left him because he liked more the present world and departed for Thessalonica. It's very human to look back and to ponder about the past lifestyle, past experiences, past relationships, despite God getting us out of them and setting us free. Maybe it's our past comfort zone. Maybe it's familiarity or control that we're looking for backwards to, not forwards to. The motives can be fear or regret. Maybe you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. Let's go back to where I came from. Maybe you lack trust that God can change the situation you're in and will walk with you through the mountains, through oceans and desert. Or it's a compromise or distraction from something else and you're like, go back. Or spiritual apathy when life without God looks more exciting than life with God. So this can happen and you slip into a regression, into walking backwards where you once were, but it slows or stops the spiritual growth. But God calls us to go forward. There is another passage after Jesus' resurrection. The women are looking for Jesus in the tomb. And the angels, while they're afraid and bow down, say, why do you seek the living among the dead? You should not go and seek for God in your past experience, not past experience, but in your old lifestyle that you left behind. So I've run a few races. I've never seen anyone running backwards, and I'm sure you also have not seen. I know there's a Japanese like turning tactic around like a hairpin thing to kind of like run like this. I cannot show it, but usually you run forward, right? It's like you start from the start and run to the finish line forward. No one comes to the race who wants to run backwards. Sometimes looking back during the race also leads to stumbling when people are like so sure they will win and then look backwards and suddenly they stumble and that's it. So it's usually, I would say, not advised. It can cost you a victory or losing a place. And even Australia's animals cannot walk backwards. The one in the coat of arms, the emu and the kangaroo, I learned. And they were chosen because of that, because there is only one direction they go, forward, not backward. So that's the reverse gear, when you walk just backwards or when you turn back. The next gear I chose is waiting, which is the parking gear. The handbrake, I'm used to that. It's used when you wait, when you park your car. Quite often, like most of the cars just stand. We don't usually drive them 24 hours. It's to stay in place and it's to go nowhere, just to be there. And it's when you don't need to move away. It's staying at one place or sometimes you wait for someone in the car. So continuing with this story about Moses and Exodus, Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, stand still. Like, don't run around crazy or anything, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish among you. They have expressed their fear and anxiety, and this is the reply. The Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. So all the words here that are marked in red and during the whole presentation are just like, kind of like these movement words. I tried to find them, and shows what's happening, where people are moving in these stories. And they should not be afraid, but observe actually what the Lord will do for them. And this would not come natural to them. Like we have seen, they were afraid, they were scared. And it often goes against their human instincts, because we lack control, we like to have action. So later there was a time of national crisis. After they disregarded God's clear instructions, Moses modeled to them what resting in God's presence looks like when it's not rooted in fear. And we know this story. Maybe I'm just going to quickly go through that. It came to pass when Moses entered the tabernacle, the cloud descended and stood at the door, and all the people saw it and came, and the people rose and worshipped, each man in his tent. So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to a friend, and he would return to the camp, and Joshua did not depart from the tabernacle. So God comes and spends time, and he can just stay, Moses can stay in the presence of God. Before leading them further, God invites Moses to stop and renew his strength for the next season and to get wisdom from God. Joshua stayed there as well, which we know later became the leader of the Israelites. King David later describes this experience as, in Psalm 37:7, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. So it's not just the fearful and the desperate who need to rest, but leaders and kings as well. And ultimately we know Jesus himself, as it's recorded in Mark 1:35. In the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. So Jesus regularly withdrew to those places and to be in the presence of the Father. So parking is not a stagnation, but it's a sacred stillness. You wait for God. God invites you to stop, to pause, not to be idle, but to prepare for the next step. And sometimes it's really hard to rest and refuel rather than running around backward, forward, as we have to listen what we otherwise would tune out. And the Holy Spirit will refill what movement and running around drains. So I wish I would have taken that time to pause before the last race in October 2025, before the Melbourne Marathon. I was such in a rush to get out, to get there, to start, that I completely didn't even take time to spend in the presence of God, what I would like usually to do, to just spend time first before I rush through whatever the day brings. And on this day I was just like, I need to go, I need to hurry. I was stressed to start the race. And also I didn't take appropriate rest to stretch. I didn't take time for that. I just started it, and so I don't know. It just didn't feel the same way as if I would have taken the time to start the race. Also, sometimes after the race, you need to take rest. Your body will tell you, and running well rested is much better than running with 4 hours of sleep. So this time you need to stay and to take rest applies to our spiritual life, applies to our physical activities, what we do. So it's something that we can find throughout our life. The next gear, the neutral gear, when you stand still, when you're forced to stop in a manual car, for example, you put on the neutral gear. It's like on a traffic light, you wait, right? You don't put on the parking brake. You stay in this place, but you have the brakes applied. You don't go anywhere, but you still let the engine run. You cannot move away, and you're not quite sure if you should move in 1 second or in 1 minute or in 10 minutes. So you'll leave the engine running. You don't move at the moment, but you're ready to. But also, you use your fuel, your petrol. You go nowhere. No matter how high the engine revs, no matter how impressive it sounds, you're still standing there. You're going nowhere. And the neutral gear is waiting, but it's not resting. It's being ready, but not moving. So the story of God is, when God tells the Israelites to go forward, continues. Moses invites them. This is the Red Sea, by the way, somewhere above here. I think they moved around just so that you have a visual map of the story. And in Exodus 14:15, the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward." So they're still in this fear and anxiety state. They are standing idle and let fear paralyze them. This is not an option. And Joshua later faced a similar situation where he had to call him. I think we probably studied that today. There was an amazing victory. God fought for them to conquer Jericho. And they suffered a shameful defeat after that when they tried to conquer a much smaller city and even some casualties. So Joshua tears his clothes in despair and cries out to God, full of fear and uncertainty what would come next, because they didn't dare to move forward. And God says to him, "Get up. Why do you lie on your face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant." So God is unfazed. Why do you lie on your face? Like, get up and get things right. And he tells him how to get the things right, how to do them right. They couldn't move forward because they didn't follow God's word, and something was between God and them. And fear also paralyzed the Israelites under King Saul when they faced the enemies, and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. They heard the trash talk and were dismayed and greatly afraid. Instead of moving towards the enemy in battle, they froze for 40 days. And even one of the greatest prophets in the Bible, Elijah, he was not immune to fear and exhaustion. There was an experience of him when he was on the Mount Carmel, and it was a great miracle that he did for God. He showed the Israelites who is really God. And suddenly there was a dark turn of events. Suddenly he was the one on the run, because the queen at the time, Jezebel, was out to kill him and sent him a messenger that she would end his life in 24 hours. In 1 Kings we read, "And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he prayed that he might die and said, 'It's enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers.'" He was exhausted. He feared for his life. He just wished to die. And I'm not a psychologist or pretend to be any of them, but maybe he's depressed as well. So we can see, I cannot blame him, because I don't know if I had a better plan if there was someone out to kill me and would hunt me down. But God wants us to live, to thrive. And so he meets his needs in a few verses after that. This is someone draw a painting of Elijah. I'm not sure if you can see it in the light. He's just down. Then he lies down and slept under a broom tree. Suddenly the angel touched him and said to him, "Arise and eat." And then later comes again. And then he arose and ate and drank. And he went in the strength of that food 40 days, 40 nights, as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. And he went into a cave and spent the night. And then God asks him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" God did not rebuke him, but he renewed him. He gave him what he needed at the time. It was food, it was rest, and it was a simple question that God gave him. So maybe being in this neutral gear looks like waiting, but often it's fear in disguise. It feels safe, but it leaves you stranded without fuel. Maybe you feel that way. Maybe you're exhausted, uncertain which direction to go, running away from real or imaginary dangers. So this waiting does not really refresh you, but it burns you out. I can relate to that. I feel like this sometimes. Maybe, currently at the moment as well. But God invites us. He's always there and invites us to go the next step with him. He invites us through the prophet Jeremiah in 31:25. "For I have satiated the weary soul, and I have replenished every sorrowful soul." And then later Jesus himself says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And so often, like in Elijah's case, God gives us more than that. He gives us a mission and a reason to move forward. If you read the story of Elijah, he gives him like 3 missions to, go and do this. And he encourages him along the way. And my wife and I, we once joined a race where we had to wait for over 1 hour for our batch to start. It was early in the morning. It was cold. We didn't anticipate to park our bodies for a longer time, so we didn't bring adequate clothing. And it got cold, and it was just miserable. We were ready to run, but we were forced to wait in neutral gear, ready for the race that would start eventually. So we didn't know when it would start, but we burned our energy and the bones get stiffer again. We didn't warm up properly, of course. But when the race finally started, I didn't long to go back to that waiting period. I wanted to move forward. I wanted to face the race in front of me. Finally, we put on the first gear to move forward, crawling. I call it crawling because it's very slow. How often do you use the first gear? It's just to, when you have a manual car, it's just to get your car moving. You shouldn't use it to go fast or anything. It's the lowest of the gears. It's used to drive the first few meters. You start, maybe you go up a very steep hill. It's going forward at least. It's not enough speed to use the higher gears yet. You just started to drive. You just make the first move. You overcome maybe some obstacles in front of you that lie. Maybe it's a speed bump or something. But it's not for speed, it's for getting moving. So there is a story of a woman that had some kind of certain medical condition. Jesus is on the way to heal a girl who was deadly sick, and there's heaps of people who surround him, and they are all around him, and it's difficult to move forward. The pace is very slow, and other people don't know it, but there is a woman among them. She has a disease for 12 years, a blood flow that doesn't stop. She has no hope of healing, but she slowly makes her way through the mass of the people. She already has spent the whole money, all her savings, but the condition only grew worse. She was not just idle in neutral gear, all of her energy was burned already. I can only imagine how it must feel like if you are sick since 2013, like 12 years ago, and there is no progress. And unfortunately, there's still things like this happen today to some people. And we read about this encounter when she finally takes up the courage to come to Jesus. She hears about Jesus. She came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. Slowly and silently, she reaches out. Maybe she bows down and hides so no one could see her. But she still goes there. She wouldn't want to disturb Jesus. But then what happens? Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up. She felt that she was healed of the affliction. Jesus immediately knows what's going on. He feels power had gone out of him, turns around in the crowd and asks, who touched my clothes? And of course everyone's like, hey, there's lots of people there. Of course everybody kind of like moved around and touched anything. You see the multitude thronging you and you say, who touched me? Like these guys didn't see anything. They were oblivious to what has happened. But Jesus is not. He knows. He knows what has been going on in the life of this woman. And he looked around to see her who had done this thing, but the woman still fearing and trembling. Knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. So despite her still being in fear and trembling, she knew that he was her only hope. She came to him and she was still probably like, didn't know exactly how to react. Her body didn't catch up to what just happened, or her feelings didn't catch up to what happened, but she moved forward. From fear in her state of nervous waiting to faith. And Jesus doesn't leave her at this state. He says, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. So he gives her a mission as well. He tells her to go in peace. It doesn't matter that her faith was not loud or was not flashy or anything. It was real, no matter how fragile it was. She moved in the right direction, slowly but steady. Because Jesus didn't measure the speed of her approach, but he saw the sincere faith. There is also more stories about a Syrophoenician woman who came to Jesus, an outsider and pagan. And there is a story about the pagan Roman centurion. He just had enough faith to ask Jesus to heal his child. So coming from an idle state, when you come from neutral, it can feel really impossible to make the first step. When you're exhausted, the savings are wasted, like this woman, for this woman's sickness, you feel like it isn't enough anyway. There is nothing you can give. Why even try? Just stay in this neutral state. But God honors even the smallest step of faith toward him, even the smallest prayer. Even when you have no confidence taking the first step, he will lend a hand. So when I'm exhausted during a race and I want to take a break, it's nice for the moment. My heart rate gets down, I rest a bit. But then getting to move again, it's hard to do the first steps. Because then it feels like, oh, not again, I have to move my feet again. And it's all like stiff and everything. But I know I have to do it, even though my body is telling me to stop and to give up. I know those first steps have to be done so that I can continue moving in the right direction. No matter how hard and slow they are. My pace might be slow, but the feet are moving toward the finish line again. We shift up another gear. Now we're walking. How often do you use like the second gear? It's like after you started going at a low speed, you want to get some momentum. You accelerate, you still move forward. You want to go faster than crawling, but you cannot go full speed yet. You move forward at a low speed, maybe there are still obstacles around that you need to swerve around. Maybe there's moving parts, maybe there's people running around. So in a car you wouldn't go in the highest gear. It's to build momentum and be ready when the speed picks up. There's a story of 3 guys in the Old Testament, unrelated but still related to each other. In a corrupt world, there were still always people who were faithful to God, who stayed in connection to God. And this is described as walking with God in the Bible. The first one is mentioned in Genesis 5:24, and Enoch walked with God. And he was not, for God took him. So we don't know what happened to him. It doesn't yet explain how this walking looks like. It just says he walked. What it means, we read further. In Genesis 6:9 is another man. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. So we get a glimpse of walking with God is more of a character transformation than it is about telling you how fast you should walk or how you should, put one step before each other. So being a just man and perfect in his generation shows how this walk with God changed him over time. And this is further emphasized, we see in Genesis 17:1. God talks to a famous guy called Abraham later. Here he's still called Abram. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I am Almighty God, walk before me and be blameless. And we know from the story of Abraham, he walked with God, yes, but also he stumbled sometimes. But he came back, he consistently walked with God. He walked through temptation, through waiting, through sacrifice. There's also another famous story about famous walkers in the Bible. Maybe one of the most well-known who travel along a dusty road. It's the story of the road to Emmaus in Luke 24. Could have looked like this, like someone imagined in a painting. They just walk along this rural road. Now behold, 2 of them were traveling that same day into a village called Emmaus. This happened after Jesus was crucified, and they were devastated. They were completely down. They didn't know what would happen. They didn't know where to go. They just walked away. 7 miles from Jerusalem, I think 11 kilometers. They talked together of all these things which had happened. So it was while they conversed and reasoned, they tried to understand, right? Jesus himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were restrained so that they did not know him. 2 travelers were not aware that Jesus was with him, but God walked with him in the most literal sense. And it was not just a simple walk, because he said to them, what kind of conversation is this that you have with one another as you walk and are sad? Beginning at Moses and the prophets, he explained to them all the scriptures of the things that were relating to him. So not only did he walk with them and just joined them and walked silently, but he encouraged them. He explained them actually what they didn't understand before. And it's probably a 2 or 3 hours walk. I don't know how fast people walked back then for 11 kilometers, but I think similar to us. So he explained every passage in the Old Testament that pointed to him. So God doesn't just call us to walk with him, he walks with us. And he doesn't just walk with us, but he talks and encourages us along the way, no matter how sad, how long, or how difficult the way is. Famous King David knew this when he wrote in the famous Psalm 23, "Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." I don't know of any other religious figure, deity in history, God, whatever you want to call them, that willingly walks with us humans, that willingly comes to the valley of the shadow of death, and willingly even further through death itself. So I have not heard of anything. I tried to look up some of them, but I didn't find anything. Sometimes we have those short encounters with God. Sometimes we occasionally cross his path. But how different would this journey look like if you actually walk with God for many kilometers, many hours? Walking is not glamorous. It's a very simple activity. You just walk. There is nothing special about it. But walking with God is glorious because we experience him along the way. So true community with God is not in these short sprints, but of emotion, but in a steady companionship with him. So we all have heard how it says sitting is the new smoking, right? And it slowly kills people because we sit too much nowadays. So people are encouraged to move, to get up, to walk. We have our daily step goal. We have smartwatches and wristbands that tell us if we have reached the goals. And it's good that we do this, because walking is the easiest way to be healthy, to build consistency and endurance. But what if we would be as aware of the dangers of spiritual sitting instead of moving? We want to stay in our comfortable spot. Maybe we don't want to get up because it just feels nice now. And instead, what if we would go for a daily steady walk with God and wanted to reach our step goal with Him? Sometimes I just walk back home from work to call someone or to just observe or to listen. I don't know, there's no specific goal. I just take the long way to walk. And I think it's something, sometimes it's even just to think and pray and process different things in my life and formulate my thoughts to Him. We switch up to the next gear. It's running. Now you're already moving. You have a steady speed. You can finally accelerate. You can go faster. You want to travel further, long distances. You still go forward, but you want to go further with the lightest weight. You want to just continue, focused and undistracted. We have a story in the Bible that talks about David and Goliath. It's a quite familiar story. It's mentioned that the Israel army was afraid and discouraged, including the king. The enemy was powerful. The champion was tall and stronger than everyone else. So who enters the chat? A young boy. He's like 15, 16 at the time. He wants to kill the giant Goliath who mocks God's people. But he tries on the armor of God, the armor of Saul. It doesn't fit him. His brothers are angry with him. Why did he come here? Why did he bring himself into this stupid situation? Like, who is he? Why is he so proud? Why does he think he can change things? So he needs to get rid of everything that weighs him down. Be it the armor, be it the negative influence from others. It's like a runner who wants to run as light as possible. But he knows his motive, and he had faith that God is with him. The story is in 1 Samuel 17. Just going to pick out a few verses. Moreover, David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, He will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine." So it was his previous experience with God when fighting wild animals that gave him confidence and trust in God. So Goliath does some trash talk, and then David counters with some real talk about his soon defeat. He was locked into one goal: defeat Goliath. So it was when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David. David hurried and ran towards the army to meet the Philistine. So probably the man was twice his size, I guess, but he's just running. He has this one goal. Now everything happens very fast. This is maybe the young teenager, David, and this is the giant Goliath. David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword. He killed him with the slingshot, and drew it out of his sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. And Philistines saw that the champion was dead. They fled. They're also running, but this is a different kind of running. Now the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines. David claimed the victory by taking the head, as was the custom in the war back then. The enemies flee. They are unorganized, chaotic, but the Israelites run after them and chase them. And this was one man only. Remember the story of the two walkers on the road to Emmaus? They were on a sad journey until Jesus showed up. So once they finally realize that it is Him, they talk to each other. Did not our heart burn within us while He talked with us in the road and while He opened the scriptures to us? So they rose up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem, found the 11, those who were with them, gathered together, saying, "The Lord is risen indeed and has appeared to Simon." And they told them about that. So I'm thinking, judging by the way they talked to the others, this probably was not a slow walk back. I'm not even sure if they finished their dinner. I think they were running, maybe keeping a really good pace for 10 kilometers, and then the last kilometer they just sprinted. Just get there and tell them, because they also needed to encourage them. They found the others, they were probably sad, and they encouraged them with what they have heard. They had one goal: get back there and tell them the good news. Everything else became irrelevant. So it was one man one man who was driven by faith, not fear, to conquer impossible obstacles. The whole army followed David's lead, and followed the purpose of defeating the enemy. It only took one man to change the sad journey of the two guys in Emmaus into one filled with hope and faith. With fresh energy and a newfound passion, they were able to run. They were able to conquer enemies, face difficulties, and overcome them. So running with God requires endurance, requires focus, discipline, but this is built while consistently walking with God. There was a time when Elijah, shortly before crashing under the tree, he also ran before King Ahab as the rain started to fall, full of energy, before fear overtook him. So it needs a steady source of energy coming from faith in God, because fear only gives you enough energy to flee and burn out. So those who run, they know that longer runs, we need a preparation for a race, for example, and I've experienced how important the right fuel, focus, and no weight is. Like you need to prepare yourself for those long distances. And you try different tactics, what you eat, how you eat, when you eat, if you eat at all. You try different kind of like approaches to that. To keep you moving, to not give up, you want to bring as little weight as possible so it doesn't slow you down. And there were at least 2 times when I was almost about to give up. And 2 separate races. The first time my wife kept me company and encouraged me to not give up and continue, even though I just wanted to lie down and cry. It was just too much emotionally. Second time I was by myself, and it was only my willpower that was kind of like making the decision. Do you keep going or do you stop? If I should walk or stop or continue. And with the past experiences, I could overcome this and could run faster. And I remembered that this has happened before and it didn't stop me. So I put my focus back to where it should be to get to the finish line. Finally, we switch to the highest gear. It's an old car, so it's the 4th gear. Today it would be the 6th or 7th gear, I think. But just to stay consistently, I chose the 4th. It's the highest gear in an old car. You go at maximum speed, you travel fast. You still go forward. There is no suddenly stopping or anything. You want to get to the destination as quickly as possible. You press the pedal down, you utilize all the power of the engine. You give it all. It's the highest speed possible. It might bring the engine even to its limits. It might get hot, it might vibrate, it might rattle. Again, it's an old car. You understand this? There is a story about a guy called Philip. He walked for a long time to catch a treasure of the Ethiopian queen. And he was riding in his chariot back home, and he was reading something, scriptures from the prophet Isaiah, shortly after Jesus was crucified and resurrected. This Philip guy, he listened to the voice of the Holy Spirit that told him, overtake him. So Philip did that. Go near and overtake this chariot. How fast is a chariot? I don't know how fast they are, but I think they're faster than a human. So he got some power from God to do this. Philip ran to him and heard him reading and said, do you understand what you're reading? Such an odd question, but this was the right question to ask, because this guy then asked him, yeah, I'm reading this, but I don't understand it. Can you explain it to me? Hop in. And so they had a Bible study in the chariot. So he was fueled by the encouragement of God's Spirit to be able to go to this guy, to run to him, and had this one focus, run full speed to him and do what God asked you to do. And he also, this minister from the queen, he is also the first person that's recorded to be baptized after Jesus left his disciples back. We know the story of Paul. I won't go into the details. Paul has been on many mission trips. He did a lot. He suffered a lot. And some companions left him and go back to their old lifestyle, but he was never one to boast about what happened to him. But instead, this was near the end of his life, I think. He said, I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And he was looking forward to this prize, the crown of righteousness, as he describes it, that God would give him one day. And it says also in another book in the Bible, in Acts 20:24, none of these things move me. They talk about discouragement before. Nor do I count my life dear to myself, so that I I may finish my race with joy, and the ministry which I received from the Lord Jesus to testify to the gospel of the grace of God. Again, he has one focus. He knows what he's doing. He knows why he does it, why he kept going with all his effort. He suffered all these difficulties. He did not slow down until the end. He finished the race well. He fought the good fight. That is sharing about the gospel and God's grace with us. And ultimately, the perfect example, the ultimate example that we have is Jesus. As Christians, we know that he's our ultimate example. He did not ask us anything from us that he didn't go through in himself. In fact, he asks us way less than he did, because he doesn't ask us to go through the horrible experiences he had. He ran the race, he endured until the end, and he finished the race strong. And Paul describes us here when he runs with endurance the race that is set before him. He looks unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. Jesus sprinted through suffering because there was a higher goal. The joy that was set before him, that he would do this for us. Jesus was also on the cross for an unusually short time. That's why the Roman soldiers had different methods to check, to make sure a crucified person was dead. And we also know that the sin of the whole world weighed far heavier on him than all the physical pain and agony. So, and if everyone ever fought a good fight and kept the faith, it's him. It matters more to finish well than to start fast. It can start like crawling or a small step forward. Maybe you start with a limp, maybe it's just slowly forward. This guy, Paul, the Apostle Paul, who wrote about finishing the race strong, he did not start fast at all. In fact, he almost sprinted to the opposite direction in the first part of his life, when he actively persecuted Christians and followers of Jesus. Sometimes runners experience a condition called runner's high, where you feel an adrenaline rush and you just feel energized and you want to go fast, and it's light, everything, your whole body feels light, your feet almost fly over the ground. It's always great when this happens. I love it, especially at the end of the race. Sometimes it happens way too early, which is annoying, but at the end of the race, it's a final push that you just, okay, I need to go. Yeah, sometimes you don't have this adrenaline rush, but it creates this focus. Nothing else matters. Like, you have pain and it's just annoying and everything, but you forget all about that. You just know you want to run to the finish line. You put everything there. You give it everything you have. Nothing else matters. You want to finish it strong. You want to give it your all. You have the outlook of family and friends maybe waiting at the finish line. Maybe it's a medal as well. The prize. You use all of your energy, even when you, like me, almost faint from exhaustion when crossing the finish line. So where do you go from here? Where are you going? Quo vadis. I'm just doing a quick recap. We have gone through all the stages, the gears of journey with God, and God is with you in every step, even when you're in reverse gear, in regression. You go backwards, long for the past. Turn around to the lifestyle you once had. Jesus says, no one who puts his hand on the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. So he calls you to change that way. He calls you to not look back. He calls you to continue walking with him. Because when your heart is turned backwards, you cannot move forward in your faith. God calls you to come back to him. Sometimes you're in that stage of your faith where you're parking, you're waiting. You wait intentionally, you rest with and in God. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. When your rest is God's presence, your strength is refueled by God's Spirit for the next season, for the next mission, and the long journey ahead. God gives you the rest that you need. Maybe you're in neutral currently. Maybe you're standing still. Maybe you're paralyzed by fear, hesitation, or exhaustion. The Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. Do this step. When you're paralyzed by fear, God still wants you to go forward. Come, just do this step. Trust me. There were multiple occasions when they were asked to go forward, be it the Red Sea, be it the Jordan, be it any big obstacle in their life. God encourages you to go on. He will walk with you. Maybe you're making your first steps. Maybe you're crawling. Maybe you have the first steps of faith. Remember the woman? If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. It's not a grand display, it's not something flashy. You might be trembling, you don't have maybe much trust in yourself, but God sees the little faith and He encourages you to keep walking and He restores you. Maybe you're already walking with God, continually, consistently with God. Keep on, day by day. Because what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God? When you walk steady with God, you learn about Him. Your character is changed along the way, like it happened for Enoch, Noah, Abraham, and He will strengthen your faith. And God also talks to you when you walk with Him, when you take the time to spend in His presence. Could be that you're already running. Great. Run with purpose. Run with focus. Forget what is behind. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes or looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. When you run and your energy comes from faith and not from fear, God will give you this endurance to finish the race. You will have the strength, the power. God will give it to you. So that you can sprint to the finish line. You can finish strong. You can give it all. You can say, I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. When you know why and what you are sprinting towards, speed is secondary when you stay faithful and finish the race with joy. Yes, sometimes you sprint to the finish line, sometimes you just go over the finish line, but you still gave it everything you had. Jesus says about how God looks at these faithful followers. Well, there should be a text. Anyway, I read it. No, there should not be a text, I forgot it. Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your word. It does not say, well done, good and fast servant, or good and strong. It says, good and faithful servant. So it doesn't matter how strong you finish. If you give it all, if you make it there, if you be faithful until the end, then this is something that God will definitely see. So which gear in your journey of God are you currently in? Maybe you can identify with one of the gears, maybe with multiple of them. The same way a car can and should change gears, it's designed to do that. You should not be stuck in one gear, but continue moving. And also, in which direction are you going? You'll never walk alone, as many others have experienced the same journey. Many others are on the spiritual journey, but it's on yourself alone to make the decision which direction you want to go, and then move forward step by step, from reverse to drive, from regression to revival. Because Jesus' invitation is today as important as it was 2,000 years ago. Come follow me. Thank you.